Hello, Jacob Smith here, and this is going to be my presentation over the network architecture diagram, my GVM report, and security issues. Diving right in, we've got my network architecture for Kryptonite Solutions. That is my fictional company. Big fan of Superman, so I wanted to throw that in there. Jumping right in, we have our internet. We're going to start left to right. We're going to flow that way. Our internet up here, we're going to flow into our router and our EDN firewall. EDN firewall is one of the firewalls that I researched for the 2 to 3 intellectual tools that we were required to throw in here, and just to talk about how they create a framework together. After it goes through the firewall, which obviously is going to monitor incoming and outgoing traffic, we're going to go right into the IPS, the intrusion prevention system. This is going to be inline, and it's going to basically have the chance to provide another layer of security and monitor traffic and block malicious traffic, prevent traffic from unauthorized traffic from coming into the network. As we keep going right, we're going to go right into our demilitarized zone, or DMZ. And we have our DMZ switch, which everything inside of our DMZ is going to be our public facing servers, our public safety facing servers, excuse me. We'll have our email server, our proxy server, and our DHCP server in there. As we go back out and we flow back down, we're going to have off to the side, not necessarily in line in our network flow, our traffic flow, we'll have Splunk in our IDS. I kept those two separate. Splunk acts more like an intrusion protection system. However, from research, it doesn't fall under that umbrella, but it does have a lot of features that are like intrusion prevention systems. So I put Splunk on there, and and a security checkpoint with our intrusion detection system. Both of those will provide that extra layer of security to monitor in real time the network traffic and then alert to any malicious traffic that has, say, gotten past the intrusion prevention system and the firewall from above. As we're going into the internal switch, I wanted to provide that extra layer of security with Splunk and the intrusion detection systems. As we go through the internal switch, we're going to get closer to that primary server. We're going to go ahead and go through another firewall. I threw that on there, and then another intrusion prevention system as we're getting to that primary server. I wanted to block malicious traffic and monitor traffic more heavily. As we go through the primary server and we're splitting out, we have two switches. We have a switch to the first floor and a switch to the second floor. Um, Ideally, this is based off of where I work now. There are 3 floors. The first floor, the second floor, they're going to be operating off the primary server. I put Wireshark in there. Wireshark it provides real-time network monitoring as well. And I wanted to throw it down there. The first floor and the second floor with the 6 systems in there, they're single systems, or they're single users. They're not working groups. So Wireshark can provide some features for passwords and for networks. So I put that on there to audit those users, and to increase password security. I also threw in intrusion detection systems right here. Another security checkpoint, just again to monitor network traffic flow and to monitor any malicious behavior that's going on within that primary server. And then we're going to go back up through the internal switch, and we're going to go into our firewall. And this area over here is essentially floor 3. It's our third floor. We're going to go through the firewall, and then we're going to have 2 routers. These routers lead to our VLAN, our VLANs, our virtual local area networks. Our virtual local area network 1 is for our sales department and our marketing department. I grouped those together in the same VLAN because their primary goals are to build the company, to get exposure to the company, to bring customers in. So with similar goals, I figured they'd be best to be segmented onto the same network while also being their own department. And then We're going to go back up and we'll go through our next router and we're going to go into our virtual local area network 2, which houses the accounting department and the human resources department. These are more of the company employee focused departments. Accounting deals obviously a lot with finances and the back end numbers. Human resources deals with employees, payroll, all the fun stuff. So they operate on the same network. Again, being segmented, still being able to operate as their own department, but housing them in the same virtual local area network because they perform similar operations. And then we see our research and development department down here. The research and development department is air gapped. We see that it is air gapped. It is not connected to the same virtual local area networks as the other departments are, because with research and development, especially with Kryptonite, we don't want people, we don't want outsiders or unauthorized users knowing what's going on. So we're going to limit that access. We're going to strengthen that security and monitor more heavily who can go in and out of that department there. Finally, or I forgot to mention, within each department, we can see that there are the 25 clients here within each 5 of the departments. So that is the network architecture for Kryptonite Solutions. Next, I want to dive into our GVM scan report. The first report, it does show the hosts that we have on there. We got all 3 hosts on there. Um, there were no high risk vulnerabilities. There was one medium vulnerability, which is down here, which was through the 135 TCP. Um, and then we had 2 low vulnerability, or 3 low vulnerabilities, excuse me. The low vulnerabilities are the ICMP timestamp request. That was all of the low vulnerabilities. They're all solved the same way, and it's going to be solved by mitigation. Um, Next, we're going to jump into our security issues. Excuse me. Talking about novel systems and advanced or newer systems. Um, Things that have been security threats that have been around forever, internal security threats that are caused by human error or human negligence. Those have always been around. They're always going to be around, and that can all come down to a lack of training or simply ignorance. Uh, a lot of that has to do with employees who aren't properly trained, and a social engineering attack goes out, like I'll mention here in a second, and they click on the wrong link, and that opens the door to a hacker who can essentially do what they want at that point, in breaching data or gaining unauthorized access to the system. That leads into another security issue, which are data breaches through authorized access. This can be done through social engineering, or it can be done through negligence with poor password security or no multi-factor authentication. If those things aren't in place, hackers can run brute force attacks, and they can figure out passwords to people's accounts or employees' accounts and gain access to the system that way. The next one is a lack of access control restrictions. This is a big one because you don't think about it. Maybe many people don't think about it. And I've worked at places where I had more access to information than I needed. And a lot of that can lead to improper behavior or malicious behavior if an employee has malicious intent and they have access to sensitive data that they shouldn't have access to, or their job doesn't require them to have access to it. That could lead to a lot of loss in data, or data breaches or data leaks. So a big one for that is to give employees the access to the data that they need for their job. If they need access to sensitive data on a daily basis in order to do their job, they need that access. But if they don't, if there are employees that don't need a high level of access to information, they do not need to have that access. There needs to be an implementation of more strict access controls. The next one we have is social engineering attacks, which I mentioned above. These are very common, very popular attacks or security issues. And a lot of this comes down to you can't really control a hacker sending out, say, an email through the entire company, but you can train your employees on how to detect those emails, know when they're fraudulent, and send to the cybersecurity team to make sure that they are monitored. And the training on this needs to be regular basis, especially with new hires. They need to know what's going on. They need to know what to look for when it comes to social engineering attacks. The next one is denial of service attacks on cloud networks. So cloud networks are becoming the big thing these days. They're becoming more and more popular, and a lot of companies are going toward storing data on the cloud networks. And denial of service, not being able to access those cloud networks because hackers overwhelm the system, or they take over the system, or they simply they get the system to shut down. That prevents people who are using it with good intent, ethical reasons. They can't access it, and the dangers behind that is that so many people are putting their information and their data on the cloud that once something goes wrong and security is breached, it can be very hard to get that data back or to get control of that data again. And then again, or finally, there is inadequate threat notifications in cloud systems as of now. Now that depends on what kind of security systems one has in place and is using to monitor the cloud. But for the most part, the threat notifications are not near what they are with hardwired or more physical um, network systems. So what that means is if someone or if a hacker is able to hack into the cloud or gain unauthorized access, it may take some more time to detect that hack, to detect the malicious behavior, and by that point, it might be too late. So these are the security issues that I have with that I researched with novel systems and with more advanced and upcoming like cloud systems. Finally, here's my reference page. These are all the sources that I utilize to put together the presentation over security issues. Thank you very much.